Welcome to Rica Subtest 2 online test preparation course presented by ricatest.com. Thank you so much for joining us. In this lesson, you will learn everything you need to know about competency number 11, which is how to promote students' development of vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge. Vocabulary includes words and their meaning. Additionally, effective vocabulary instruction includes these key parts. First, teachers must provide students with definitions to their vocabulary words that are student friendly and fit the student's age and ability. Second, provide meaningful and contextualized examples, especially for new concepts. This means that the teacher not only provides kid friendly definitions, but also provides students with the experience of reading these words in sentences or in text passages. Third, provide repeated exposure to the same vocabulary words. Furthermore, each effective vocabulary lesson includes the four following components. Number one, direct instruction of specific words. Number two, teaching students independent word learning strategies. Number three, developing word consciousness. And number four, encouraging wide reading. Your Rica test will ask you to demonstrate your ability to provide effective vocabulary instruction. So, in the upcoming slides, we'll equip you with a list of explicit vocabulary instructional strategies that you'll want to use on your Rica test. When teaching vocabulary, make sure to design guided discussions that build students' practice of academic content and concepts. Next, connect guided discussions of the new words and their meanings. Challenge students to identify synonyms and antonyms. Discuss words, their origins, roots, and or affixes. One strategy that students love is when you can tell the story of a word by sharing its etymology. Create visuals with the students, such as a semantic map, which is also called a word map. Develop and provide word banks. This is especially helpful for English learners and struggling readers. Comparing and classifying words orally and in writing by teaching students visual organizational methods such as the Venn diagram. Generate metaphors and analogies with words orally and also in writing. Incorporate new vocabulary in subject matter discussions and as well as written assignments. Use precise words in speaking and writing. The strategies mentioned in the previous slide should be used to provide variety and keep student engagement high. Next, we will describe the step-by-step framework for the actual structure of vocabulary instruction. Now, when you receive an essay question on your Rica test regarding teaching vocabulary, the instructional strategy that you will want to use is called contextual redefinition, where first, the teacher selects the target vocabulary words to be taught based on frequency, utility, and level of knowledge about that topic. Then, the teacher finds or creates a text passage which includes the target words. Note here that these two first steps are completed in preparation and not while the teacher is with the students. In step 3, the teacher is with the students in the classroom. The teacher now presents the target words by either writing or projecting the words on the board. This is done in isolation, meaning in a list, and the students independently use their vocabulary notebooks to write the meanings of each of the words on the board. For example, here hat, ask, flap, fast, and lap. Now, if a child doesn't know the meaning of a word, they simply write, I don't know. Next, the students move into small groups of 3 in order to speak together to discover what their peers wrote for the definitions of each word. At this time, Students can keep, change, or update the definitions that they wrote from the previous step. The teacher now shows the target words in context, meaning in a text passage. Here we have, I lost my red hat. I will ask my sister if she has it fast. I made a lap to ask her if she has seen it. She said, the one with the flap? Again, the students update their answer to write a more thorough definition now that they've seen the words in context. Next, the teacher and the students have a guided discussion of the target words, and volunteer students offer their definitions of the words. Then the teacher continues to lead a guided discussion about the target words by eliciting synonyms and antonyms of the target words from the students by focusing on the root word as well as their affixes. As connections are being discovered, the teacher is making a semantic map or word map right on the board. While the students are engaged in this discussion, they are also writing the word web in their own notebooks too. Then, in order to incorporate the new vocabulary taught in this lesson into a written assignment, the teacher provides a worksheet that includes the target words from today's vocabulary in a word bank at the top of the paper, and the students use the words to complete the written assignment. The Rica test will require you to demonstrate your understanding for explicit instruction for independent word learning strategies in order to help students determine and verify the meanings and pronunciations of unfamiliar words. Let's cover this now. Make sure to use these three independent word learning strategies on your exam. First, we have morphemic analysis, contextual analysis, and using a dictionary. Let's go over the meanings of all three. Morphemic analysis, which is also called structural analysis, is when you look at the parts of a word to determine their meaning. Here we have the word undeliverable. The root word is deliver. The suffix is able, which means can, and the prefix is un, which means cannot. So that we know, using morphemic analysis, this thing is undeliverable, which means it cannot be delivered. If on your Rica test you're presented with a question for how to teach students to independently understand the meaning of words, you can certainly use morphemic analysis. However, it's important to know the second strategy, which is called contextual analysis. Let's go over that. Contextual analysis is when the child uses contextual clues to figure out the meanings of unknown words. What helps me best understand contextual clues is to think about the textbooks that kids read in their science class. These textbooks present information in an easy to learn format using bold terms and designated direct definitions. Oftentimes, there will be captions under the images and even examples of the word. All of the contextual clues really help young learners. However, the disadvantage of only teaching children to figure out the meanings of unknown words using contextual clues is that as the children get older, these learning supports in their textbooks are incrementally taken away. This means that the children who weren't taught direct morphemic analysis skills will have a difficult time decoding the unfamiliar words. You might be thinking that if a student comes across an unfamiliar word, why don't they just look it up in the dictionary? And this is an acceptable way, of course, to find definitions, but it doesn't mean that it's the best way to uncover the meaning of a word, particularly for our very young learners. It is important, however, that teachers explicitly model how to use a dictionary because it is a good reference book and it's an important skill to have. Furthermore, in order for a student to find a word in the dictionary, the student must be at the level where they know how alphabetized words are ordered. Now, there are still two main issues with children using the dictionary in order to find the meaning of words. Can you think of what they are? The first is that if a student plans to stop and consult a dictionary each time they come across the word that they don't know, this strategy will make their reading process slow and very distracting. Also, if a student successfully finds the word in the dictionary, selecting the correct meaning of the word can be really challenging for young learners. For this reason, it's important that when students do choose to use the dictionary, they have a children's version available for them. The third way to develop students' vocabulary skills is to build upon their word consciousness, which is having an interest in words. Methods to develop students' word consciousness include engaging students in word games, discussing the etymology and morphology of words, and supporting students' investigations in their etymology and morphology. We can also draw attention to the use of figurative language and encouraging students to share new and interesting words that they find. To promote the development of vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge, we can use explicit listening comprehension activities by promoting word explanations, reading both literary and informational texts aloud to students, and conducting guided discussions of text content and vocabulary. It's important for children to broaden their literacy by reading different types of texts. Teachers develop students' oral language skills by reading aloud to students every day. Then, students will develop their language abilities using the information from the teacher's readings and activities that engage peer students in direct discussions based on the material being learned. We call this instructional strategy oral rehearsal. Once the students have been exposed to new vocabulary words in their oral or spoken form, the students should also gain practice reading and writing them too. Teachers can provide reading assignments that include the target words and then ask the students to use these target words in a writing assignment. For your Rica test, you will want to know the strategy called sentence combining, which focuses on improving students' sentence structure. And it happens when a student is taught to recognize common sentence patterns, often using a grammar point. Let's have a look at specific examples. The teacher has pre typed and printed sentences that can be joined together, such as William threw the baseball to Jill, and Jill caught the ball with her glove. The teacher tasks the student with finding a way to combine the sentences. The target lesson is connecting sentences using a comma plus a connector word. The students complete the task by writing William threw the ball to Jill, comma, who caught the ball with her glove. The teacher can also teach language structure through syntax, which is the order of words in a sentence. In this case, the teacher will teach common grammar points based on syntax. A fundamental aspect of better understanding a sentence is knowing how we use pronunciation and capitalization in the English language. To teach this, teachers create sentences with errors, and students work to correct the errors. Can you spot the errors here? In order to provide effective vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge, instruction for struggling readers should include to focus on key vocabulary, academic language structures, and background knowledge, as well as reteach vocabulary, language structures, and key concepts. Use a variety of concrete examples to explain a word or a concept. Provide additional meaningful practice using visual, kinesthetic, or tactile approaches with new words and concepts. This works especially well with action verbs. If you're given a question on your Rica test about how to provide effective vocabulary instruction for a struggling reader, our suggestion is to focus on keywords and instead of teaching a lesson that includes 6 to 8 words, such as a teacher might normally provide, with the struggling reader, help them learn 3 or 4 of the most important words from that lesson. We provide effective vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge for English learners by activating students' prior knowledge by making explicit connections between their current knowledge and new vocabulary concepts. We also capitalize on the transfer of cognates. Cognates are words from different languages that look alike and also share the same meaning. Next, we can also build on our students' current language skills and reinforce their knowledge of basic, functional grammar to facilitate their reading comprehension. Next, Contextualize new vocabulary and concepts using visual aids such as pictures, charts, word organizers, and graphic organizers. We can also use the pre teach, reteach, practice, and review teacher modeling technique. Also, consider building on students' morphological knowledge, including knowledge of the meanings of common root words used in academic language. There are a lot of ideas on this list, but what's important is that you choose one that you're able to recall and write about for your Rica test. As seen in past lessons, teachers provide effective differentiated instruction for our advanced learners by increasing the pace or complexity of instruction, building on and extending current knowledge, as well as extending the depth and breadth of assignments. For the assessment of vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge for our students, teachers need to recognize that vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge are all indirectly assessed in reading comprehension assessments and recognize the implications of this in interpreting the results for those assessments. When assessing students' understanding of vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge, the teacher should provide a standardized test. The test should provide vocabulary words in context and not in isolation. To do this, the teacher can create an activity that allows the students to use their target words in writing, where the teacher can read what the student wrote in order to evaluate the student's current understanding. Remember that morphemic analysis is also structural analysis. The first is to use a text passage that is made of nonsense words. Questions refer back to the text, which require the students to look at the structure of the words or the sentences to provide answers. Assessments have three levels. First, we have entry level, used to determine a student's level before a lesson. Next, we have progress monitoring assessment, which is an assessment given in the middle or during a lesson or larger unit. Third, we have the summative assessment, and this assessment is provided at the end of instruction, when the teacher assesses whether the student has met the standard, not met the standard, or has exceeded the expectation for that standard. Teachers need to analyze and interpret the information they collect based on the assessments provided. Each assessment needs to tell a teacher where the students are regarding below expectations, at expectations, or exceeding expectations. Furthermore, these results also help the teacher create differentiated instruction plans to teach each student's needs. There's been a lot covered in this lesson, so let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways. The three parts of effective vocabulary instruction include provide student friendly definitions, provide examples in context, provide repeated exposure to vocabulary words. Four components of vocabulary instruction include direct instruction of specific words, teaching students independent word learning strategies, developing word consciousness, and encouraging wide reading. Our favorite instructional strategy for teaching vocabulary is a mixture between contextual redefinition and using semantic maps. Remember, we use explicit instruction for independent word learning strategies to help students determine and verify the meanings and pronunciations of unfamiliar words. One independent word learning strategy is morphemic analysis, which is also called structural analysis. And this happens when you look at the parts of a word to understand its meaning. Wide reading helps build students' vocabulary knowledge because students gain exposure to different types of writing and text structures to increase their vocabulary, academic language, and background knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us in this Rica test lesson. When you're ready, go ahead and take the Competency 11 quiz to check your understanding for this test material. We look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.